Good morning. The Indie Comics Network has just been kamikaze.
The views and opinions expressed within the video content found on the Indie Comics Network are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Indie Comics Network or its sponsors.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do. Flip out, man. All I want to know is who's coming with me.
It is very professional to start off a show in mute, just to let you know. Otherwise, you'd hear this sound behind me. That's a waterfall. It's a coffee waterfall. Good morning. I am independent artist C. Michael Lanning, and while I'm not exactly who you expect to see this time in the morning, I thought I'd kind of kamikaze myself in here and go ahead and get things started for the new year. How's everybody doing out there? You know, as always, here on the Indie Comics Network, we want you to like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, hit up a neighbor, whatever the case. And so, anyway, what I decided to do this morning, I kind of got up this morning. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and do a live stream this morning. And I'm going to drop some character designing and everything like that. And while, yes, no, this is not the art style kamikaze that happens on Saturday nights. This is still a Friday morning, and no, I don't have my times backwards. This is actually me. I just figured, why not get a little bit in here? Let me drop this display name. You don't know who I am yet. Maybe you might not want to. So anyway, let me switch this over. Here we go. Oh, no. Now here we go. Hence why I've named this technically difficult. Anyway, I decided to kind of just come on, do a couple of character designs, whatever the case is, maybe mess around. It's been a little while. It's been, I think, before the new year, before we had the last art style kamikaze. And while I don't have my co-host with me this time, we will be back Saturday night at 10 Eastern, and we'll be looking at different character designs and stuff like that. But she's not here with me now. I think she's still sleeping, but don't tell, I won't. Anyway, so years ago, when I first started coming around on the indie comics circuit, or this circle of the indie comics circuit, as it were, I got involved with some people, and we ended up putting together the collage, and one of those people was Meredith Loughran. And we were in a group one time, and we were talking about goals of doing an indie comic, whatever, for that year. This has been a while, for long time, but so we were talking about that I made the mention that I had an idea for this kind of a rockabilly, style book or IP creation. It was definitely going to be a comic. What's it going to be? I have an idea for it right now. I'm not really willing to say what that is exactly right now. But so anyway, she had wanted to do a book where had the idea. She kind of, it was the Marvel method. Now, to be completely honest with you, and this might be on somebody's nerves when I say this. I am not a fan of the Marvel method, and you find out, in all honesty, when you get into this kind of thing, the whole Marvel method thing is actually, it's kind of mythical in a sense. It's not exactly what you think it is. You really start diving into certain things, and you realize, you have your comic artist doing more writing than the actual storyteller. But that was not the case with Meredith. That was not the case at all. And we were developing this IP called Reapers, residual energy. It was REEPers. So it was residual energy evacuation and procurement, I think is what we came up with. So anyway, so what it is basically psychobilly cyberpunk ghost fighting street games, and that was the essence of it. And we actually put out a short in a comic. It was kind of a one of those anthology comics or whatever the case is, which was more of a sampler than anything else. So we ended up having a short little story in there that kind of introduced the characters. Unfortunately, we were never able to develop it as much as we would like to. There was a couple of things that we were working on. There was things that was coming out. Currently, I'm writing the script for it, or I'm done with the first draft, and so I just kind of wanted to, we're gonna put out some character designs now. Just get a little bit of a feel for it, maybe talk through it, and I like to start with the. This is a character. What I like to start with here is a character that was actually solely created by Meredith, and I'm saying that straight out. This is a 50-50% creation between she and I, and so basically, this is a character that was created by Meredith called Kroam, Kroam, because she spelled it weird like that. So I'm kind of just So what I will start with is I kind of have the small, medium, large feel that you normally get for these character designs. It's something to start off with and get it really going. And thinking about this stuff, and I'm spitting all over my screen because I'm a nasty son of a gun. So the whole essence behind it, while I'm thinking about it, let me say this. When thinking about this, and over the past, like I said, I've been in the whole make it maybe cross-armed here. I've been in the whole indie comics thing for about, I would say officially, although I was drawing beforehand, but officially I've been in this whole thing for about 2020. So what is it, 2024? So oh my gosh, people, it's almost 4 years. Do you realize how quick 4 years goes away in the comic world? Gee whiz. And the amount of things that have happened, and I'm going to be completely candid with you on this and completely honest with you. There has been scandals and lies and deceit and things that always happen in this thing. And there's always constantly some problems going on. Yes, you have the whole, one group against the other group and the blah, blah, blah. But there's other things that go. And I think I figured it out, guys. I think I figured out why you might run into those type of things in the comic world, or the comic kingdom, as it were. And I think what happens is it's such a niche thing. And the internet has really been able to bring it. If you can't find a group in your hometown, your home city, or whatever the case is, that are into comics, being a comic lover or a comic connoisseur, you have a tendency to feel lonely, right? It's such an empty thing. I'll put it this way. I was actually reading a comic at work a couple months ago. And I think I'm going to do this. Anyway, so I was reading a comic couple months ago at work, and somebody's like, "Oh, you're reading a comic?" And the idea behind it was, oh, he said, I didn't even know they still made those. I'm dead serious. So you get it could be, to be a comic lover, it can be a lonely world. And then so this is where you're at. This is spent most of your life. So here's the deal, guys. I'm Gen X, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. But here's the deal. Geek wasn't fashionable before what, 2010? I mean, let me know what you think. I mean, so geek wasn't fashionable till 2010. You had the Marvel movies come out, and now superheroes were a thing. Otherwise, it was just kind of a, you're into that kind of thing, comics and so on. You're going to see me use a lot of basic shapes here, to really kind of capture the overall thing. I'm always big about the look, the Comics Network. Sup, dork? All right. Yeah, that's right. I just hijacked this network. Just let you know. I got it. It's mine. You don't know when I'm going to show up. That's why I called the show Art Style Kamikaze, to go off on a tangent, because I did not have plans to necessarily be a solid point in time. I wanted it to just show up at any point in time. I don't want to trample on anybody's turf. And since the lovely ladies of the ICN are taking the month off, I decided to sneak in here on their time and get it done. So, so we'll find out. My wife's off someplace, and so she can't kill me yet, but when she gets home, maybe she will. Anyway, but as I was saying, so you're in this niche, you're in this comic culture, and you're kind of a lonely island, right? You're by yourself. Now the internet comes along, and now you can find people. And of course, that opens up to a lot of comic book guy, right? There's just a lot of people, they bring their negativity or whatever. And all honesty, that was one of the reasons I never particularly cared for going to the comic book store. Now, in Baton Rouge, there wasn't really, it was always fluctuating if there was a comic book store or not. You had bookstores that had maybe a kiosk that had comics. I remember a kiosk in like a flea market. There was the guy who had the kiosk in the bookstore closed down. He opened up a comic book store. That didn't last long. Then there was a bit, it's been fluctuating. I think we've had one, going back to work so we can hit the beach later. I love you. I hope that's my wife. I love you too. Have fun. But yeah, so basically, it was fluctuating, right? We didn't really have it. There wasn't enough people here to keep a comic book shop alive. And some of them that were here were kind of assholes. Now, the guy I'm thinking of, I remember his last name was Baker because I remember the comic shop was Baker Comics. He was not. He was a nice guy. But, and here's the deal. When you're a teenager, and they might not have been, I might just be, misconstruing that, I guess, just who knows? Because being a teenager, that was whatever the case. But I feel like I need to come out here with this. So anyway, so you get online and now you have a comics community. Now you have comic shows that you can watch. You have all these things. And, I need to change some of that around. This is just trying to give him a Steve McQueen hat. I'm not quite sure if that's going to work out too well. It's looking a little, I don't know. We'll find. I'll probably change the shape of that face a little bit more. Something maybe that looks a little. I can't even say what it looks like because I think I might be demonetized. But yeah. So you get online and you find this community. But you know what? Here's the deal. There's a lot of people who are able to take advantage of people in this community. because I'm if you hear typing, it's because I'm looking up references. But no, so you hear weird hat. Let me see if I can get that right. And I think there was just this instance where it's vulnerable people to take advantage of, and it's really easy to do it. And there's been plenty of people who have done it. So it gets, especially if you're in this, you find yourself in a bunch of scandals, and people will do some of the weirdest shit for no reason whatsoever. I don't get it. It's kind of like a pathological liar. Why? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, what do you get out of it? Now, pathological liars, they have this, the mental ability, but like somebody who tells little white lies or what are you getting out of this? What are you getting out of making a fool out of yourself? Really? I mean, really? And to just say stuff that it doesn't really hurt anybody, but it doesn't do anything for you. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And you see this a lot. I have. Maybe you haven't. God, I hope you haven't. Really, we haven't. But you see this a lot in comics or in the online comic community. And you just you wonder to yourself, why? And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, in all honesty, that it gets to a point where it's really easy to take care of some, to take advantage of these people. I mean, you don't know me. You see me through a screen, right? You have no idea. If I might be a decent person, I might be an asshole. I'm an asshole. But still, you don't know. What if I tell you I'm an asshole and I'm really a decent person? That would be horrible. But you never know. And I don't know if I really like going with this. But that's what character design's about. So, but anyway, so with this, with Reapers, unfortunately, we only got one thing out. It is like I said, I really wanted to do. I wouldn't say that I am in the rockabilly group by a long shot. Not at all. But if you see me pausing, it's only because I'm trying to see if I figure something out. I've never been in the rockabilly group per se. And but I grew up, my mother was born in 47. She grew through the 50s, in the 60s. So what I ended up being exposed to a lot of was oldies music. Is that called oldies anymore? Or are we calling them ancients now? I'm not sure, because oldies are now the 70s and 80s. So whatever. So listening to ancient music, Temptations. She was an Elvis fan. Things like that. But I do I like the rockabilly scene, and I definitely want to respect it. Did you know? Okay, did you know that Drake Bell, or is that his name? Drake Bell, of like Drake and Josh, ended up doing rockabilly? That was weird to me. So I end up finding all these weird, like, documentaries. I want to explain. I want to talk about this one here in just a minute. But I find all these weird, like, documentaries. And one was on rockabilly, the rockabilly culture. And if you don't, okay, and so just for anybody who's not familiar with what rockabilly is, rockabilly is a love letter to the 50s, not the bad part of the 50s, but 50s music. And rockabilly at that point in time was hillbilly singing rock and roll. You know, that was kind of the inclination. And at first, I believe they were saying in this documentary that it was a negative connotation, it was a negative term. But you know, they've taken it, turned it around, it's become a thing. So it's like fast cars, they have, you know, their different styles, you know, things like that. They don't necessarily live all like in you, like in any culture, in any clique or whatever the case is. You have people who have an idea of what something is. For instance, a teddy boy, which was a kind of a gentlemanly, maybe Zoot Suits. Of course, that's a little bit later, but I mean, Zoot Suits is a little bit earlier than that. But you know, the kind of suit wearing, hair slicked back, you know, not greaser type, but it was basically a British thing, and they were gentlemen. And then there's this guy who calls himself a teddy boy, and he's kind of a rude guy. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon or Freebie or I don't know. It's a streaming service. I can't keep up with this stuff now. I can barely keep up with my kids. So I do not like the legs. I'm gonna have to figure this out. So anyway, yeah, it's not working for me. Anyway, so I'm watching the documentary on this, and so you have different types of ideas on these cultures. He calls himself a teddy boy. He's not really the attitude of that. Then you have part of the culture that's like, oh, we all should live like we were in the 50s and with those, you know, housewife ideals and things like that. And there's some that don't have those ideals. And then there's the tattoos. And oh, well, anyway, so long story short, I kind of wanted to do around those terms, around that time. And so it's not going to be 100% rockabilly, psychobilly, whatever the case is. Psychobilly, I'll be honest, when I think of psychobilly, I think what's it called? I think of the Misfits in a way, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily psychobilly. I know they like to call it punk. I'm not a Misfits fan. I like punk, but I'm not a Misfits fan. Yeah, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling that, guys. Let me see if I can't figure out something else. But yeah, I hate to leave it hanging. Let's just see if I can't get it out. Let's see what I can do with it. So anyway, so not a Misfits fan. That's what I kind of think of when I think of psychobilly. It's kind of like, you know, like The Last Caress, like or Die Die Darling and everything. And you have the skulls and the so on and so forth, which I love the skulls and so on and so forth. So that's the cool part of the Misfits. I'm just not a fan of their music. I'm one of those ones. I do like punk music, but you know, I came up on Rancid, and I'm not even a Clash fan, even though. So I'm not a good punk, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, point being, so you got all those classes and everything. So I want to be respectful to that when I do this also. But we'll see. But back to the other thing. So anyway, I was watching that documentary. It was interesting. I fall into these kind of documentaries, and the thing about it is, like, there was one documentary that I was watching called Insanity, and I am not, speaking of not being a fan of things, I'm not an ICP fan at all. To give you a little bit of history, the first time I heard ICP was, oh geez, I don't know, about 97, whatever the case is. So if you don't know ICP, it's Insane Clown Posse. They're really big. They're schlock, really. They're in a way, they're kind of like horror genre schlock. Uh, People like them like they like the serial killer culture, and that's okay. Like, I don't take them seriously. I don't think they take themselves seriously. But they, if you don't know, they have this whole culture called juggalos. Well, and stick with me, guys. I know I'm talking about ICP, but please just stick with me. If and yes, it does kind of, and this, we'll come back to comics. I know this is the Independence Comic Network, and I'm talking about ICP. No, ICP on ICN. I know it's weird, it's confusing. Stick with me. I've got a train of thought here. So anyway, they have a following, and they call their following juggalos because they're clowns. I don't know. So, gigolo, jugglers, juggalo, whatever. I had a couple of friends who were juggalos. First time I heard ICP back in 1980, I literally was, and I'm saying literally, and I mean literally, sick. Like, it did not, I did not enjoy the music at all. It was not something in their rap group, but they're like one of the worst rap groups ever or something like that. And they take pride in that. So I guess if you enjoy what you do, and take pride in it. And so anyway, so fast forward, I had a couple of friends who were part of that culture, part of the juggalos. They dress up in clown makeup. They have a gathering. They go out. They do the gathering. Workaholics actually did an episode on it. If you haven't watched Workaholics with Adam Devine and those other two guys, check it out, because it's funny. But they, when they went, they have this family dynamic. They all seem like family. Some of them are very normal when they're out and about, whatever. And some of them have, they come from a certain class, I guess, and it's issue, not a bad class or whatever, because I grew up as I'm not exactly higher class at all. But so yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yeah. So anyway, so the juggalos have a gathering. They're they're kind of wilding out. They're not exactly your desirables. Well, the FBI, and this is what interested me about this documentary. The FBI decided that they were going to label juggalos as a gang and gang related. Now, here's where you take issue. There's not an organized crime as far as juggalos on a global, or I guess a national scale is concerned. There's not an organized group of juggalos going out and committing crimes. Now, there's people who are juggalos that commit crimes. Somebody goes out and they want to be John Wick and they go shooting up everybody or killing people with pencils and stuff. You can blame John Wick for that, but now we can't label people who are John Wick fans as being a gang, right? And so this is what was happening. You were talking about a musical base or a fan base being labeled as a gang, and that's what caught my attention about it. And while I'm not a fan of ICP or anything of the like, their fan base doesn't have a right or doesn't deserve to be labeled a game, because not that why you have people who listen to it, you know. So what it ended up coming down to is, because they were listed as a game, they were cops would pull them over. Venues were dropping their gathering, all this thing. So they ended up having to take legal action and go against the feds for labeling them as a game. And so what do you think? I mean, it's kind of scary in a way. Now, I grew up in the 80s, and I'm sure some of you will remember, in the 80s, you had what was called Satanic Panic. And Satanic Panic was basically, you had a lot of hair metal, you had a lot of black metal, death metal, things like that. I don't know if black metal was necessarily a term back then. But anyway, of course, you had Metallica. That was probably your biggest at the time. Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, all this. So, and it actually, and if you really want to go back, because it even goes back further than the 80s, you can even go back to the band Knights in Satan's Service. I'm sorry, Kiss. But that's what they came up with to say that Kiss was demonic. So it's been going on. Rock and roll's been going on. It's always been that case. But can you imagine, on those grounds, the fan base, headbangers everywhere are now considered a gang. In case you're just tuning in, headbangers are not considered a gang as far as I know. But juggalos actually are still considered a gang. And that's wrong. There are people out there who, it's like, I've dated a couple of girls, and to be completely honest with you, there are people who are into the serial killer culture, or let me rephrase that, because serial killer culture doesn't really apply necessarily to what I'm talking about here, even though that is a culture too. But like horror movie icons, Freddy, Jason, Chucky, right? And of course, the big man himself, Michael Myers. So the issue comes in. So can you imagine, because we're talking about a fan base that, they like Ghostface, or they like whatever the case. Now everybody who likes or who wears a Friday the 13th shirt, or who wears a Nightmare Before Freddy shirt, or a Nightmare on Elm Street shirt, is now classified as a gang. Oh my gosh, it's not, that's not cool. So we have to watch those type of things, and especially on now. But in essence, we have seen this type of thing recently, and I don't know what I'm doing with his mask yet. I want to pull off some references and everything for him. This guy's name is Chrome. I want to get a little bit more around here. I don't feel like that's enough, but let me try to. I'm going to bring this down some more. I really like to finalize things, so bear with me. But yeah, so can you imagine if you're wearing a Friday the 13th shirt or T-shirt, being pulled over by the police simply because, hey, you like something that, is really kind of violent, right? I mean, technically speaking, and I'm not opposed to wearing a Friday. I don't have one. Wait, actually, I'm wearing a Halloween shirt. So my Halloween shirt now has gotten me labeled as a gang member of the of whatever persuasion, because of that merchandise I'm wearing, and that's what these people were dealing with. And it'd be really horrible to see that. It'd be really horrible to see that idea coming forward and coming to us in that sense. Like, you like this thing, and it's intrinsically viewed violent. So now, you must be violent. We got to make sure we don't have that. And it does happen in the comics community. See, I told you I'd bring it back. Where if you like a certain thing, then you are this. And we got to make sure that that doesn't happen. It would be really horrible to think Batman fans, even though some of them are toxic, I guess, Batman fans should be looked at because they might do very violent vigilantism. I don't know. Is that a thing? You've been charged with violent vigilantism. I don't even know if vigilantism is a word, but it's a word now. We've just made it a word. We word things here. That's what we do. That's what we do here on the internet. We word things. So anyway, so even though I'm not an ICP fan, and I doubt there's many of you guys out there that are, we can't allow that thing to happen to a fan base. Individuals should be marked on who they are, on what they do, not because they like a certain type of music. And like I said, and this is so back to this and the certain type of music. So here I am drawing rockabilly characters that are street gang members and stuff. Because the idea behind Reapers is they will collect, it's different street games. It's not just the rockabillys, there's different kinds. And the issue comes that they will go and steal residual energy and sell it on the black market. So I had a whole pitch for this at one point in time. I don't know if I can find it anymore. But basically, when ghosts can be harvested for money, you're up against the black market and other gangs just to reap that sweet, sweet spiritual gold. So, and that's what we're looking at. And so this is Chrome. I would kind of consider, I don't know, maybe I would, the way I look at Chrome's identity, he's kind of I wouldn't call him level-headed, but more of just a kind of a character that thinks he's in charge. But I have another character called Flip that I'm going to redesign that I think is, fits better into being the one that holds the glue together, right? So, and what I have, basically, I have another book that I have the outline and stories for and things like that. And so I want to pull out this short story, which is not much. It's not anything deep. It's just I'm just out. I just want fun. I don't want to be deep. I don't want to be, this. I don't want this to be some plot, it's not Silence of the Lambs, or it's not, something hard and heavy that you have to, really put a lot of thought into, honestly. I want something that you can, chuckle at, have fun with, enjoy reading. That's what I'm looking for right there. I'm not trying to win an Eisner. I don't care about winning your Ringos. I don't care about any of your awards. It's easy for me to say that. I doubt I'm going to get one, regardless. But this is not what I do this for. And please, if you have that in mindset, then take a step back. Take a step back and think to yourself, why am I doing this? And if you find yourself getting upset at people who are making money doing something that you yourself don't like to do anyway, don't be upset because you're a niche or you're not getting that audience that you want to. Keep moving forward. Keep going that way. Keep your head above water, and it might take years, and you probably find an audience. And even if you don't, guess what? You are your audience. I don't make comics to get rich. And if you're into comics like that, it doesn't really work that way. I wanted to create, and I've made this statement before. So I've taken writing classes. I've done this, many writing books and so on and so forth. And I've had short stories. I had one published in a freaking web zine back when they were first coming out back in 99, I think it was. But the thing that I have, my issue that it comes to writing is, like I always say, it's the narcissist in me. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I've not been officially diagnosed with narcissism. However, I'm not opposed to having been diagnosed with narcissism. Yeah, see that I'm going to have to work on that mask. But let's see what he looks like this way. But I basically didn't want. Yeah, there's a tip, guys. You're trying to make sure that you got it right on both sides. You need to flip your image. And if you do this, you should go, oh, you're digital, bad digital, whatever. Take your image on your piece of paper, hold it up to the light, turn it around, and let the light shine through it, and it's going to show you your mistakes. And this is the best way to find the mistakes and things that you need to change. Like, for instance, this shoe here. This is bugging the hell out of me. And this will help you find things that you need to change. And sometimes those lines down there help ground the character somewhere. So this really helped. I really should have grounded the character to begin with at the first. But so let me take you through it real quick before I go back on my tangent. Let me see here. All right. So this is what I've started with. And this was basically just to get, let me put this up here. This was basically get a shape. And you see I've got my triangles down here. I got, my round stuff up over here and little round things there and everything like that. So I've basically done that. Anyway, and then I kind of bring that down. I start fleshing it out a little bit more, kind of getting a better idea of the character. Again, so I bring that. I ended up putting this into a folder together. Put it in a folder. Bring down my opacity on that folder so I can still kind of see it. But I really want to keep those lines in there because, guys, those lines are what keeps the story, what keeps it alive. And I have a plan for what I want to do when it comes to inking this stuff. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, but this is going to be completely experimental. And if your projects aren't experimental, they're no fun. And if they don't aggravate the hell out of you, then they're not worth it. And if they don't make you pull your hair out, shave your head because you want a project that will to have you pull your hair out. And so I broke it down, okay, and got a little bit of better idea of what I was looking at here. And now here's my character. Now what I want to do is, of course, I'm going to keep the lines here. Again, I'm going to put this all in the folder. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink this and see if I can't get maybe marry myself to this a little more. I'm not really married to it, but so I know I'm not. I'm sorry. I might not be as entertaining as what you normally used to on a Friday morning. But hey, you know what? So, Yeah, unfortunately, the not to spoil it if you're going to you plan on looking at the documentary, but unfortunately, they don't come off of the FBI list, which is a shame. Which is just a shame. So, and it comes down to, okay, so if you can do this to a if you can do this to a music group fan base, what else can we do this to? What else are we going to see this later on being classified as a gang? Maybe we'll have church gangs, right? If you wear a golden cross, you're part of a church gang. It might happen. You never know. Like, they might be afraid that you're going to crucify somebody. I don't know. Who knows? And one of it, and what's sad is the people that are in power, right? I'm not liking that. Like the people who are in power, no wonder. Like, did you just have a problem one day with the Juggalo? Was it just like, did this lead up to something? Was this something that, like, it was all like, there was a whole bunch of cases of bad Juggalos, and you just decided, oh, we need to make them gangsters? Or did you just wake up one day and go, man, I hate that clown makeup. Let's make them gangs, that kind of thing. And they get pretty rowdy. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the Metallica fans that ended up tearing up a city one time? Or Guns N' Roses fans? I believe it was Guns N' Roses fans. It happens. People get out of hand. But that shouldn't be labeled to everyone. And the same thing goes, for comics. We shouldn't have a fan base that, everyone's labeled this. And I feel like in some sense it's going to come down to that. So, you're one of them mainstream comic lovers, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, whatever. Oh, you like manga. Or, and that... I got news for you. Here's the deal. Everybody's like, oh, they go to manga because, they have better stories. That's not necessarily true. It is absolutely not necessarily true. It all depends. And again, like I said before, and people have been giving me grief about saying this. I think I saw the other day, someone said that Image Comics is the reason why we had the boom for mainstream comics in the 90s. That is completely and utterly false. Image is a result of that boom, not a cause. It is not a catalyst. What you saw in the 90s, as far as the boost in comics were concerned, and why, you see, you can try to do whatever you want to. You can market, you can create characters that are similar to other popular characters. You can, have movies in mind, things of that nature that you want your comic book to be made out of. But here's the deal. What catches on is dependent on what time it comes out. Very serious. For instance, what ended up boosting the mainstream comic industry in the early 90s is you got to take into consideration. You had 89 with the Batman boom. Then later on, about 90, 91, 92, you had the X-Men cartoon. You had Batman, the animated series. These things were coming out. And it wasn't that it was more adult. Oh, no. it was that it was a more formulaic story that didn't insult kids into it didn't insult the medium. It wasn't one that insulted the medium. It was X-Men was a very deep cartoon, especially for kids. And it didn't insult the medium, it didn't insult the viewers, it didn't insult the fans. It played on the intelligence thereof, and therefore some of those go back and watch some of those Batman animated cartoons. They had some really good stories. It wasn't just Batman going and beating up some bad guy all the time. There was, I mean, yeah, that happened frequently, most of the time. But there were stories that were intrinsic into that even taught lessons. I think it was Dr. Seuss who made the comment or had a quote that a kid can see a moral a mile away. So he didn't write with morals in mind. But a good story is going to carry one, or it's going to carry a theme. It's going to carry an opinion, and that's what it was. And those cartoons weren't trying to. They weren't trying to convey a theme, or you had your PSAs, or don't do drugs, or your mind on blah 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 blah. Sure, you had that, but there was. I think the X-Men cartoon really caught the Marvel sense of drama. As far as that's concerned, the Batman cartoon caught that mystery and that tone that we have for Batman, and is one of the reasons why we have the idea that Batman doesn't kill. Those type of things, and they're so intrinsic in that. And to be honest, Batman, in that sense, has surpassed the comic medium. Now it's not Batman as a comic character. Batman is a character that has comics. That's just the case. He was originally from comics. Now he's, transcended that medium. Does that mean we shouldn't have Batman comics? Absolutely not. Does that mean we can't enjoy Batman comics? Absolutely not. Should they not be respected? Absolutely not. That's not what I mean at all. What I'm saying is now we're not a comic book character. Batman is an IP. He is an icon. He is a brand. And to some extent, the X-Men getting that way too. Spider-Man also is the same way. And we had an animated series. While I'm not wild about the artwork of that animated series, I thought Spider-Man was a little too buff, because I do like the McFarlane Spider-Man. It was still a story that was being told. You still had complications. You still had, there was depth to it. And that's what helped the mainstream comic industry become what it was in the 90s. And so comics don't normally bloom on their own. Don't normally. Usually you have something that gives them credence. It's usually somebody who does enjoy reading comics, and they'll bring it to a mainstream medium or whatever the case. But once you're hooked, right? So don't let it, don't let it be comic. How can I put it? Even though you find your way in the comics through different mediums, whatever the case is, comic books are still so essential and important. That's probably not what it is. Do not rewind this to figure out what the hell I'm saying. But yeah, image is in its sense a product of the mainstream, because that is where I remember where I'm going. That is where your superstar comics came from, was because of the mainstream boom that happened because people were interested in comics after Batman moved to Tim Burton Batman, after the X-Men series, the Batman the animated series, Spider-Man animated series, those things of that nature. You had the Max. Well, the Max came later, of course, because of Image, but still. So, speaking of which, somebody explain something to me. And I've made jokes about this. I don't care what anybody does as far as this is concerned. But when I see these Spawn entries, like they give you the blue lines, and that's one of like the first things you learn when you get into the comics is like those lines are the bleed sections and the bleed areas and everything like that. And it's like I'm seeing like Spawn entries that are like all over the page. They even go over the little Spawn logo that's up at the top. And it's kind of like I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Wait, are you kind of out of the bleed? Aren't you kind of afraid that that's going to be it? Because for somebody who's taking their portfolio around to cons and stuff, that's kind of one of the things that if can you stay within the bleeds? Can you stay within the margins? It's like the Gotham classes that I took years ago. She explained it. She was like, we're going to have, they come in, the students come in, they sit down, and they think that they're going to be writing a lot. Like it's just going to be a lot of writing. And then she comes out with an assignment that says, okay, write a story about this, but in 500 words. It becomes hard. It's like, wait a minute, in 500 words, I have to tell this? I've heard the statement before. I don't know what kind of credence it was. I don't remember where it came from. Go look it up. If you can find it, let me know. I've heard the statement before. Oh, an epic is somebody who can't write. Somebody who writes an epic, or somebody set out to write an epic is somebody who can't write. And what that means is sometimes condensity and still able to tell the story is a lot shows a lot more talent and a lot more restraint and knowing what to tell somebody. And that's the deal. So, and I'm about to get to it. Stick with me now. So these people, they were freaked out that they had to write and it became harder to write a short story. You ever seen those flash fictions that are like 2 or 3 sentences? Write a flash fiction. Well, you got to make that interesting in 3 sentences. That's rough to do. So if there's a limit, and if you can write those 500 words and achieve telling that story in all those 500 words, you're a decent writer. So the issue comes in when I'm talking about the Spawn or the bleed sections on these Spawn covers and stuff. It's like if they are testing you, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but if they are testing you, they're also testing your ability to stay within the lines. You will show that you are a good artist by how much you make, or how much you make out of what little you have. And that's why if you're going to do one of those Spawn entries, I would definitely consider staying within the blue lines. Don't go throughout all the pages. You can go through all the pages if you want to, but make sure that your main thing is going to be that inside the bleeds, that your main art, what people are going to see on the cover, are inside the bleeds. 1. 2, don't forget your logo. I don't think these are going to be variant. These variant covers are going to be virgin. I might be wrong. I have no idea. But also make sure that you have room for the logo. That's one thing that always trips you up about doing sequential art. And it has a tendency, sometimes you get this tendency where your page, you feel like your page is a little empty because you're leaving room for a balloon. And I get that, but you're going to have something where you have a building or a background or something in there that they can go ahead and they can take that and they can put a logo over it, and it maintains the integrity of your art. So I would suggest keeping that in mind. I said that to somebody. I asked, like, this person who was a professional artist, and they didn't post this, it was somebody else who was a professional artist, which I still would like to know the answer to this, was all over the Spawn page, right? They were like all over this thing. They were over the Spawn thing, over the Spawn logo. It had some great art. It was fantastic art. It really was. So, but I said, but they're outside of the bleeds. I mean, is is this like a real entry? Are they should they want to enter this? Yes, it's a real. I got the guy who was apparently a writer who works for also a professional writer got mad at me because I asked that question basically. Yes, they are a professional artist, and yes, this is a real. And it's like, okay, you can get mad at me for asking that question. That's fine. If there is a logical answer to it, please. Well, and the answer to that logical, they were just using all the space that they had allotted to them. And it's like, but you didn't have all that space allotted to you. The part with the logo that says Swan right there up in the left-hand side of the page, that right there, it's not allotted to you. It's not. It's like drawing on a comic book page, or one of the, you get one of the sheets when you do traditional art, you get one of the sheets that have all the lines and everything on it for the bleeds and the sections that you need to stay within. It's like drawing all over that. And then when you finally get the comic book back and all you see are like mouths or eyes or something. And it's like, what's the matter? Because you went all over the place. It doesn't work that way. That's not how it works. And sometimes doing less and getting more out of less shows you to be a better artist than putting out a whole bunch. And that's just the case. I'll give you, like, for instance, what we want to stay with, what people are going to see when they're passing by is they're going to see the outline. They're going to see, wow, guys, I swear somebody one day will make a meme about me talking about shape language, but I'm going to tell you how important it is. Sometimes you can get, if you are having problems with your stuff not looking the way it does, but you're like, man, I put so much detail in it. Why is it not looking the way that I want it to look? Well, maybe it's because you're putting so much detail into something and not considering the shape language that's involved in it. Because when somebody passes by your stuff on the shelf, they're not going to see it and it's detailed. That's what you want them to do is stop and look at it to see the detail. But starting off with details is not what you want to get. What you want to get is an overall shape that says, oh, hey, this has attracted me because something about this shape language has made me want to pick this up. And so if you add a lot of detail in your background, or you add a lot of, yes, the fact that you can do textures is amazing. But sometimes less is more. And you have to keep that in mind. So, like, for instance, this character here, I don't have necessarily a lot of detail in it, but I have it. So, and Jared said, hey, Jared, what's up? Jared says, yep, less is always more. A good comic artist should be able to learn how to use negative space with their page set up. Sam Keith, Travis Cherish, etc. knew how to do this. Yeah, And I'm not just, negative space, absolutely. And I'm not just talking about negative space. Okay, let's go back. Eric Larson posted this a few years ago. I don't think it's where he got it from either. It might have been before him. I don't know. But if it's to Eric Larson, you had a side-by-side. Why does it take a comic artist so long to do art now versus how long it took Kirby or whatever the case is to draw it? And this is the ICN. Kirby's always going to come up. Here's the deal. This is why. When they put a side-by-side, you had Captain America's boots. One drew the boot. Kirby had the boot kind of looking like a pirate boot, right? Nothing wrong with that. And the other was drawn like a combat boot with the laces and the intricacies and everything. Okay, if that's what you want to do, that is perfectly fine. But you have to understand that's going to take you a lot longer. And what you'll have to ask yourself is this. Is it necessary to have all that to tell the story that I want to tell? Because at the end of the day, that's what comics is. It's a story. And you want to be able to convey that story. Myself included, have gotten into a situation sometimes, or a mindset, I should say, sometimes, where we have this idea that we want to be seen as the best artist or one of the great artists of the medium. But the question comes into at the downtime, if you want to be a great artist, then go do fine art or do this as an art form where you sell canvas and paintings. But if you want to tell a story, you're going to have to let yourself or give yourself a little bit of leeway, a little bit of slack in order to tell the story that you want to tell. And what you'll end up finding out is that sometimes, it looks bad. Sometimes what you'll find out is that the simple way to tell a story, the simplicity, is not as easy as you thought it was. So let me see if I can. I'm going to try to finish this. Like I said, this is definitely not a final, but this will be something I'll look at later on to get an idea. I kind of want a different. This is around what kind of shape language I want, but yeah, sometimes it's like, man, I really want a lot of detail in there. I want a lot of detail in there. And sometimes you kind of bog yourself down with that detail and you don't need it. Go look at some of the greats. Go look at what they did. A lot of things that you think are detailed are actually shadows or maybe even textures to an extent. And it's not too much textures. It's just kind of like, just this cross hatching that like this cross hatching that adds to a muscle, that adds to a form. And believe it or not, keep in mind that you're informing people and they're going to see this and they might add more to it than is actually there. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and looked at somebody's art from years before that I admired. Not that I just don't admire them anymore, but I'd be like, oh, well, that's not as complicated as I thought it was. And that might actually make you feel a little bit better. So take that into consideration. Let me do this real quick. And I'm using Clip Studio. Now, let me tell you something that I have really learned. Using blacks in your character designs. This is really going to help you make that page, that comic page, fill out a lot more. Of course, you have your line weights that are very important. But using those blacks are going to really help you fill out that character. And it's going to help your comic book page look a little bit more professional. It's going to it's going to have more weight to it. It's going to feel better. I promise you. And when I learned that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Why didn't I think of that before? But kind of get that Steve McQueen hat. No, earlier it was kind of looking a little. This camera, my head gets cut off. I was looking earlier, and it was. I was like, oh, this is looking a little. Oh my gosh, what is that character from? I want to say Grundle, and that's not Grundle. From Hellboy. It was in the movies. Not Rasputin, but the one with Rasputin. Oh. I can't. I tell you, I can't remember anything anymore. It's just that bad. But it was looking a little too much like that. And I was going, oh, no, I need to change that because considering the you can't really have I wouldn't say they're good guys, but you can't really have a character you want the audience to like looking like a Yahtzee. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jared. Cronin. So, and I'm still not happy with this mask. I will be it kind of has a pig looking thing to it. I will be changing that mask up, but I kind of want to get it right here. Yeah, I don't remember anything anymore. So, yeah, yeah, don't worry. I'm definitely going to change this eventually. Who knows? Anyway, but I have surpassed my allotted time. What's up? See, what's up, William? So I have passed my allotted time, I'm sure. People are probably tired of me now. And to kind of give you an idea of this character, Chrome. Again, I'll probably end up changing it. It's a little too plain for me. I want to check around and see if I can get a better I don't know, shape language. So anyway, of course, I am C. Michael Ending, independent artist. Check me out. Art Style Kamikaze will be coming back tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to be looking at characters, our designs of characters from different things, and what we like about it. And of course, I'll probably have Jade with me, and she'll probably make fun of me. So, unfortunately, if you tune in for the vlogs, sorry guys, they will be back in February. I just kind of snuck into here because I thought, you know what, this time slot is a little empty. Maybe I can fill it up a little bit. So keep watch for all the Independent Comics Network shows. So Humble Animation came back yesterday. Of course, you also have Fight It with the Rodney Fight from Hasm Productions, and also their Thursday Night Throwdowns. I see that they were still doing Spawn last night, so they might be doing Spawn again this week. I think they might be pulling it off for the rest of January. Check it out. That's Chad, Richard, Vic, and of course Rodney Fight. Speaking of Hasm, if you want to see any of my work, Hasm has Doghouse #1. Arrow Comics has Calico of Shard. Also, I've done Adventures with Wyatt and Pouches. That's with Cowabunga Comics or Kyle Willis. And I'm working on something. Currently, what I have to do today is some more comic work for Dr. Flaw Comics that's coming soon. And, of course, look for Reapers. And who knows? You know what? If I feel in the mood, I might end up doing this again tomorrow morning. So check it out. You also have Artie with Alley Cat. And as always, we will see you when we see you. Bye.
You have been watching Art Style Kamikaze. If you have experienced headaches, bleeding, or a pleasurable euphoria, please consult a physician. Unless you like that kind of thing.